Lights dim, synths hum, and the screen flickers to life with that unmistakable crimson visor flash. Welcome to the deep dive every RoboCop disciple, retro cinema hunter, and sci-fi binge watcher has been craving. You think you know Paul Verhoeven's 1987 classic? Think again. Behind every servo, whir, and satirical commercial is a war room of last-minute rewrites, dehydration scares, budget miracles, and comic book cross-pollination that turned a $13 million long shot into a pop culture supernova. From Blade Runner daydreams scrawled on studio memos to Phil Tippett's stop-motion sweatshop, these 30 revelations will turbocharge your next rewatch and optimize your trivia game for life. Strap in, prime those targeting reticles, and let's track the bullet casings of cinema history, because as any OCP shareholder will tell you, there's only one RoboCop, and his origin story is juicier than a Detroit alley at midnight. When Edward Neumeier was a junior story analyst at Universal, his nights were spent combing through Blade Runner's marketing paperwork and drafting synopses. During one 2 a.m. coffee run, he jotted, almost as a joke, "A cop gunned down, resurrected by a conglomerate, owns his badge, his body, his soul." Over the next week, he built a miniature dossier: Detroit's 1980s crime rates, highest murder count in U.S. history at the time, auto industry layoffs, and early DARPA exoskeleton patents. He merged those facts into a single tagline: part man, part machine, all corporation. Then stapled concept art of neon-splashed skylines lifted straight from Philip K. Dick's rain-drenched L.A. The Blade Runner callbacks would later manifest in RoboCop's twinned themes of synthetic identity and decaying urban architecture. Street puddles reflect monolithic billboards, and police cruisers crawl through steam vent corridors like spinner cars stripped of flight. Neumeier's scribble morphed into the screenplay's opening crawl and, eventually, into a franchise brand Bible specifying OCP's corporate structure down to subsidiary tax shelters. Back in 1984, Neumeier and co-writer Michael Miner spent weekends binging Marvel and 2000 AD issues at LA's now-defunct Golden Apple Comics. Iron Man number 118 inspired the hingeless visor and vent-lined jaw, while Judge Dredd's Mega City 1 supplied the notion of cops as quasi-fascist folk heroes. Miner annotated panels with sticky notes: "Armor must look modular, easy to swap plates like NASCAR pit crew, and helmet should hide eyes to blur human empathy." They also cribbed pacing tricks: 3-panel rhythm for action, splash-page shock reveals for ED 209's massacres. Most important, they imported Dredd's blunt catchphrase structure, "I am the law," then softened it into Murphy's sardonic but righteous, "Dead or alive, you're coming with me." Comic book editors who previewed early drafts remarked that every RoboCop page felt like reading a hybrid of Tony Stark's tech diary and Dredd's judicial bulletstorm, only filtered through Reagan-era cynicism. Orion Pictures' Green Light Memo, dated 19 June 1985, capped the entire effects budget at $800,000, less than half what Aliens spent on creature work that same year. To stretch the $13 million, producer John Davison negotiated non-union night shoots in Dallas, swapped tungsten lights for cheaper HMIs, and had Verhoeven film multiple takes on a single 400-foot mag to save stock. The miracle emerged in cost-to-gross ratio: $53.4 million US, $70 million worldwide, plus $24 million in 1988 VHS rentals, enough to elevate Orion's share price by 37%. Trade paper Variety labeled the film Cinderella with a badge, citing its 4.1x domestic ROI. The success secured Orion a credit line that directly financed Silence of the Lambs, 1991. That single win turned an indie gamble into a studio war chest and taught Hollywood an enduring lesson. Edgy R ratings can beat four-quadrant blandness if the hook is sharp. Paul Verhoeven's marginalia on the first draft ran 3 words: "Too American comic." He tossed it. Martien Verhoeven retrieved it, translated key satire beats into Dutch, and convinced him the story mirrored Rembrandt's The Night Watch, noble guardians cast in shadow by a corrupt city. Intrigued, Paul storyboarded Murphy's death as a Stations of the Cross tableau and binge-watched CNN economic segments to tune the corporate banter. Within 2 days, he'd faxed Orion 20 pages of scene tweaks, doubling down on faux TV intercuts. His concept package included a mock OCP shareholder report forecasting Delta City profits, a device that later became the boardroom projector sequence. Martien's rescue turned a potential pass into Verhoeven's English-language breakout, cementing his trademark mix of splatter and social essay that would carry into Total Recall and Starship Troopers. Mime maestro Moni Yakim broke Weller's natural gait by tying 10-pound ankle weights and instructing him to move only from the hips up for hours. Each day ended with Weller sketching movement diagrams, arrows for limb angles, dotted lines for pauses, forming a private kinetic script. He tested 2 styles: serpentine, liquid smooth glides, and clockwork, abrupt 45-degree snaps. Verhoeven chose a hybrid, slow torso pivots, followed by lightning-fast gun arm extensions. The regimen not only imbued RoboCop with mechanical gravitas, but also reduced on-set resets. The precise choreography made continuity easier for editor Frank Ursoa, who later admitted that Weller cut his own shots in camera by never repeating a gesture twice. Legendary creature designer Rob Bottin Lab cast 12 body sections from aerospace-grade fiberglass honeycomb, overlaying them with flexible urethane tendons so plates could shift without cracking. Every seam hid quick-release latches modeled after fighter jet canopy hooks. The paint job was a 7-layer cocktail: base automotive black, graphite slurry, chrome airbrush, iridescent blue accents, clear coat, and finally a micro-scratch pass to simulate wear. Weight tests revealed the suit's mass distribution pinched Weller's sciatic nerve. Bottin added hidden scuba corsets to redistribute load, an innovation later used on Tim Burton's Batman suits. The craftsmanship won a 1988 Saturn Award for Best Makeup and became a touring exhibit that pulled record crowds at the Academy's Fairbanks Center. Production diaries note ambient temperature on day 27 reached 102 degrees Fahrenheit inside the shuttered Dallas power plant, chosen as the steel mill climax. By lunch, Weller's internal suit thermometer hit 118 degrees Fahrenheit. Medics threaded a camelback-style tube through the neck gasket so he could sip electrolytes between takes. A behind-the-scenes gag reel shows grip Jorge Sanchez fanning Weller with a road cone taped to a leaf blower. The ordeal ultimately influenced dialogue. After one exhausting 19-hour shift, Weller ad-libbed, "They'll fix you, they fix everything," sounding genuinely delirious. Verhoeven kept the take, claiming it blurred character and actor in a way no method prep could. Orion's initial casting memo listed Schwarzenegger, Rutger Hauer, and Tom Berenger as Tier A Murphy candidates. Bottin's 12-inch clay maquette proved the suit would balloon comically around Arnold's 56-inch chest. Moreover, test sketches showed his skull too wide for the helmet. The silhouette looked more gladiator than patrolman. Verhoeven insisted on wiry Christ-like angles, leading casting director Julie Selzer to favor Weller's lean 6 feet 1 inch frame and pronounced jawline, which fit the 7mm faceplate gap Bottin designed. The near miss preserved both men's brands. Arnold shifted to Predator, while Weller became the unlikely icon of cyberpunk heroism. Allen's bob was coiffed by stylist Vivian McKinder, who researched real Detroit PD hairstyles and discovered most female patrol officers favored low-maintenance cuts to accommodate Kevlar helmet straps. Verhoeven used the change to rewrite Lewis's introduction. Instead of a locker room glamour shot, she's first seen sparring in the police dojo, flooring a male rookie with a judo hip throw. Costume designer April Ferry switched her makeup palette to matte finish and muted lipstick, further dismantling action film gender cliches. Allen later claimed the haircut liberated her from the male gaze, letting her play Lewis as the moral equal to Murphy rather than a damsel tethered to romance arcs. Smith's metal rim frames, a bargain bin pair from lens crafters, fogged constantly in the mill scenes. Crew taped silica packs to the arm hinges to absorb moisture. The lenses, however, gave Smith a perpetual academic squint that contrasted beautifully with lines like, "Can you fly, Bobby?" His performance drew on real-world corporate criminals. He studied Ivan Boesky's insider trading testimony to nail the tone of casual amorality. One deleted scene shows Boddicker skimming through a Wall Street journal before executing a hostage. Verhoeven cut it for pacing, but cited it as proof Smith understood that ultimate cruelty wears business casual. Cox prepped by watching C-SPAN deregulation hearings and taking notes on vocal modulation used by lobbyists. He practiced the smile that never touches the eyes, rehearsing in a mirror until his cheeks ached. In the boardroom murder scene, Cox improvised the line, "I'll need a warrant for your arrest," twisting legal jargon into menace. That chill professionalism startled test audiences more than any squib. Cox's inversion of his deliverance persona earned him a Boston Society of Film Critics nod for Best Supporting Actor, and Type cast him as nefarious bureaucrats for a decade. Phil Tippett's stop-motion team included future Jurassic Park alum Craig Hayes, who fabricated ball and socket joints on a jeweler's lathe to sustain the model's 7-pound weight. They shot against rear projection plates using high-grain 5.247 stock to match live-action grain. Sound designer Jonathan Rook recycled Jaguar growls and servo recordings from NASA's Viking lander to craft ED-209's primal shriek. Tippett's careful motion blur, achieved with Vaseline-smeared glass in front of the lens, tricked the eye into accepting clay and latex as stainless steel, an illusion still praised in VFX textbooks. During a pre-shoot test, the armature's left hip joint seized, sending the 18-inch model sliding off its foam core staircase. Tippett laughed and pitched Verhoeven, "Why not make corporate hubris literally trip over itself?" They rebuilt the set with breakaway drywall, choreographed dust puffs, and used a motion control rig to replicate the fall thrice for coverage. Foley artist John Roche crushed celery and styrofoam beneath a bucket to simulate servo components snapping. Early audience previews erupted in shocked laughter. The moment became the film's tonal pivot, proving satire and violence could waltz. Gunsmith Randy Moore modified the 93R's cyclic rate by porting the barrel and installing a compensator to keep muzzle rise minimal, necessary for Weller's one-handed spin holster trick. They built 4 hero props: live fire, blank adapted, lightweight resin, and one Tokyo Drift version with internal LEDs for night tracking shots. The sound mix is a cocktail of 4.5 ACP, a nail gun pop, and slowed-down firecrackers, layered to create a bassy whomp, evocative of a high-pressure hydraulic ram, far meatier than the real 9x19mm report. Location scout Bob Welsh mapped Detroit's Packard plant ruins, then matched them to Pittsburgh's Cary furnaces and Dallas's West End warehouses. Art department added rust via ferric chloride spray, painted smog stains under soffits, and imported piles of crushed auto glass from a local recycler. The steel mill finale used 60 feet of retractable gas pipe to create continuous flame geysers. Locals were paid overtime because every shot set off real neighborhood car alarms, lending incidental city noise that Verhoeven integrated into the final mix for authenticity. MPAA head Richard Hefner balked at an early cut where Boddicker shatters a champagne flute, slices a dancer's thigh, and rails cocaine off the wound. The compromise: tone down nudity, delete arterial blood sprays, focus on menacing laughter. Cinematographer Jost Vacano switched to a 16mm handheld for a grainy, voyeuristic vibe, echoing verite caution ads from the era. Ironically, the tamer reshoot accentuated the corporate nihilism because viewers fill in what the camera withholds, making the scene psychologically uglier. Editor Frank Ursoa kept a cue sheet titled MPAA Hotspots. The notorious arm blasting went from a 26-frame linger to a 17-frame flash. Bodily chunks originally splattered against camera glass. Ursoa masked it with an optical flare. Each resubmit cost $3,500 in 3 days, pushing final approval to the wire. Verhoeven joked at Cannes, "America censors length, Europe censors ideas." Scholars later credit the enforced restraint for RoboCop's reputation as both ultra-violent and strangely artful. Special effects lead Douglas Smith mounted 16 copper shell squibs wired in a daisy chain to detonate 40 milliseconds apart. Gelatin blood packs weighed enough to knock Weller off balance. 2 stunt grips anchored fishing lines to his belt to yank him realistically. On the master take, a squib mistimed and slammed plastic shard into Weller's rib. His scream slid from acting to genuine agony, which Verhoeven called better than De Niro's sugar glass stunt in Taxi Driver. Stephen Flick fed Weller's ADR through an eventide H949 harmonizer at -0.7 semitones, added a 22-millisecond feedback delay, and layered servo chirps gleaned from dental drill recordings slowed to 48 Hz. The mix sat on its own dedicated Dolby SR channel, letting theater subwoofers throb whenever RoboCop spoke. Audiophiles claim the voice's low-end hump sits at 63 Hz, perfect for rattling popcorn buckets. The darkest of the fake ads, Nukem riffs on Parker Brothers' 1980s Risk-style commercials. Prop masters built a family game board featuring mushroom clouds over Springfield-esque suburbs. Verhoeven shot it on 3/4-inch Betacam, oversaturated the colors, then scuffed the tape with sandpaper for broadcast TV grime. YouTubers later ripped the footage and spliced in real-world defense contractor logos, sparking a 2019 meme wave that trended under the hashtag #BoardGameOfWar. Under the fiberglass, the car retained its Olds 307 V8. To make the exhaust belch black smoke, FX techs ran a rich fuel mix and stuffed half-burned motor oil downstream. The gag license plate read KMA 367, a hidden nod to Verhoeven's Dutch phrase "Krijg maar aan," slang for "go to hell." When RoboCop uses the car as cover, pyrotechnicians lined doors with DT cord grid to blow precise bullet holes, creating a Swiss cheese prop, later auctioned for $45,000 at Barrett-Jackson. Polidorus conducted the Hollywood Studio Symphony, while percussionists hammered railway plates hanging from steel cables, captured by shotgun mics, to emphasize metallic ring-out. A 28-voice choir sang syllables of Latin Mass in reverse during Murphy's funeral, embedding subliminal Ave Ex Machina harmonies. Music editors synced timpani hits to each Auto 9 muzzle flash in the warehouse siege, a technique later copied in The Matrix's lobby shootout. Designed by production designer William Sandell, the Lean used a repurposed drywall stilt mounted to a motorcycle seat plate, padded with memory foam. Weller's weight shifted to his thighs, relieving lumbar strain. Between takes, he removed helmet and gauntlets only. Botten forbade torso removal to preserve paint continuity. Set photographers captured an infamous image of Weller sipping iced tea in full armor. The shot became a 1990s dorm room poster captioned Mondays. Verhoeven devoured Harper's articles on defense industry privatization and visited a Lockheed pitch deck seminar in Burbank to observe tongue-in-cheek patriotism. He insisted OCP's boardroom be backdropped by two-story American flags and a model of Delta City reminiscent of Brasilia's utopian mock-ups. Lines like, "Good business is where you find it," were lifted almost verbatim from transcripts of Secretary James Baker's 1985 trade speech, proof that reality often supplies the sharpest satire. Masamune Shirow's one-shot The Man-Machine Interface debuted July 1986, a year after Neumeyer's first draft but before principal photography. Both works feature directive-style override codes and corporate-owned cyborg cops. While Neumeyer dismisses the connection, he did visit Japan Expo 86 according to convention records, igniting speculation. Academic journal Science Fiction Studies, Volume 32, 2005, dedicates a 14-page comparative analysis concluding shared anxieties of late capital industrialism inevitably birthed twin narratives, whether consciously or not. Story documents reveal earlier drafts had 8 directives. Verhoeven reduced them to 4 for biblical resonance, 4 horsemen. Directive 4's lockout mechanism was explained via a deleted lab scene where OCP engineers implant a failsafe EEPROM. Test audiences found the technobabble dull, so it was cut, leaving mystery to fuel fan theories. The sudden paralysis when RoboCop targets Jones nods to Asimov's discussions of legal abstractions trumping moral imperatives in his 1985 essay, Robot Dreams. Special effects supervisor Harry Woolman choreographed the mill blast with 200 gallons of aviation fuel and 18 drums of orange gel powder. Miniature plates were shot at 96 frames per second for silky slow motion, then intercut with live-action pyrotechnics cued to Poldoris's cymbal swell. Despite safety zones, heat warped a Panavision lens, adding accidental distortion to the final explosion. Verhoeven hailed it as the film's last scream. RoboCop 2, 1990, tapped comic writer Frank Miller for a script so violent Orion Red penciled half its pages. RoboCop 3, 1993, tried PG-13 family appeal. Box office fizzled. A decade later, MGM's 2014 reboot aimed gritty realism, but critics missed Verhoeven's satire. The 2023 game RoboCop, Rogue City, however, restored ultraviolence and gallows humor, scanning Peter Weller's face at 8K resolution and letting players rewrite Directive 4, a meta-reward that blew up Reddit's RR Games. Weller, shooting in Tangiers for Cronenberg's Naked Lunch, recorded 12 lines via ISDN link. Engineers EQ matched the new audio to 1987 recordings by referencing the original harmonizer presets archived on Betamax. A crafty dissolve merges 1987 suit footage with a 1992 head sculpt. Eagle-eyed fans still debate frame 237, where a seam betrays the composite. The cameo provided just enough connective tissue that home video packaging could still boast starring Peter Weller without facing truth in advertising lawsuits. In December 2022, Librarian of Congress Carla Hayden cited RoboCop's prescient critique of privatized force, enduring cultural memes, and pioneering practical effects in its induction announcement. The archived print includes Verhoeven's uncut X-rating work print, housed in a humidity-controlled vault next to Citizen Kane. Academic requests to screen it have a 6-month waiting list. Meanwhile, TikTok hashtag #JeServe, the public trust, has surpassed 620 million views, proving RoboCop's cyborg heartbeat still pulses through pop culture, warning every new generation that Silicon Valley's dream products might one day wear a badge and your nameplate. And there you have it, 30 high-caliber revelations blazing hotter than Auto 9 muzzle flash, optimized for your next YouTube deep dive, watch party trivia smackdown, or dystopian movie marathon. We've learned Blade Runner lit the fuse, Mime School molded the moves, a crash-prone ED-209 stole slapstick glory, and a handful of MPAA-mandated micro-cuts paradoxically made the violence hit harder. In short, RoboCop isn't just a cult classic, it's the cybernetic skeleton key to 1980s pop culture, 21st century meme craft, and the eternal argument over who really polices the police. Smash that like button, share these little-known facts with every sci-fi fiend in your contacts, and hit subscribe for more Behind the Armor stories. Until next upload, remember the 3 prime directives. Stay curious, stay cinematic, and, above all, stay out of ED-209's negotiation range. RoboCop out.